They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. It's 'cause you are. They'll gladly stagnate a living wage, snap the chains, bury it. Labor slaves in rusty cages dragged behind a chariot, led by Mr. Racial Jungle, Joseph or Iscariot, fighting over scraps as they barrage us all with variants and BuzzFeed clickbait, straight until we're paralyzed, trying to distract us from the concentration camps that Joe had swore he'd close but only chose to amplify, where they got 50-something kids in cages made for 5 to occupy. And no, she hasn't seen the camps, but Harris swears they're paradise. She tells us the facilities are safe, and that right down to the women, they are regularly sterilized. Then she throws her head back and she proceeds to laugh, that sort of heartless cackle you'd expect from someone working steadfastly on behalf of the virus and a Congress full of parasites. And where was I? I was busy cashing every blue check, demonstrating plainly all the narratives expected from the verified. I was busy breeding verbal leeches by the terabyte. Train them to exsanguinate the wealthy while they sleep at night. Bleed the oil barons dry and barren. Say they showed us how to share and now we share alike. Tell them I contracted rabies from a feral mic. Now I'm just another species losing sleep to noise pollution and these glaring lights, forced to change its habits and adapt to just survive. But now it's safe to say that some of us are thriving in the moment, throwing shit on presidential homes beneath the Paris skies. So if you feel like you're just powerless, I guess you bought the lie. But I can tell they're petrified of our collective might, 'cause I can hear those gentrifiers weeping at the sight of our collective rights. And I only can imagine the intensifying fear of knowing revolution's near, and all that's left to do is simply wallow in the thick anticipation of a rabid bite. And baby, one day you can ask your leaders just what that was like before you grab a slice. So if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. Honey, if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. See, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, and tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark, because you aren't, because we aren't. You see, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and make you build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, where they'll tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark, because you aren't, because we aren't. Fate demanded I be singer of a new ballad about the candidate you wanted like a finger in your fruit salad, but were made to choke down. Never mind.
Who are these people?
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Iron in News.
Hello.
Me, your host, Reef Breland, and my lovely co-host, Collin Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear. How are you, fam?
Besides, honestly, I am not sure what's been going on with me as far as sickness, but right now I have gas. Sorry for TMI, but gas trapped in my stomach, and it really hurts.
Be careful, the
Feel
U.S.
better
military will come
now.
after you if you have gas, you know?
Right. Well, I feel better now than I did like earlier this afternoon, but so if you see me drinking this, that's why.
Mm.
Should
You
be
steal
drinking
that
this
tea from
anyway.
Savvy? Is that what you did?
Um, it's no tea from Tabby, unfortunately, but it's lemon and ginger tea. So
Nice.
my hope is when we do the stream, I start to feel a lot better, and I'm not like I'm a
Sick.
lot less blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, you brought some stories with us this evening, I do believe.
well, one of them you brought to me, I believe, if I remember correctly, a
Yeah, I
couple of weeks
did.
ago.
I did.
So if you want to pull up
Yep.
that screen for us. So yeah, we've been being transparent. We've been hesitant to talk about Haiti for a bit. We wanted to have a little bit more information before we wanted to talk about it. But I think especially in light of what's happening with Brianna Joy Gray today, you know, as far as the bots are going after her, giving her comments on her most recent episode of Bad Faith, we should talk. I think this is probably an appropriate time to talk about this and what is happening there.
Mm.
Yeah, so also to be transparent, we were hoping to have RBN's Nick, Socialist M&A, on tonight, and as he is somewhat, I wouldn't say an expert, but he's very knowledgeable of foreign policy, we were hoping that he'd be able to add his commentary on this, but unfortunately he cannot make it tonight. So we're hoping to have him on probably in the next couple of weeks. But we do have special guests lined up for next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. You know, once we confirm, although I spoke to them a few days ago, they seem to be ready to come on. So once we confirm with them this week, we will definitely let you guys know. But yeah, we're going to talk about Haiti tonight. And so what's your other story? Interesting title.
American
for one.
Gulags.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is by KIRIAKOU, talking about American prisons in relation to what's been happening with Brittany Griner. So that's an interesting take. I feel like it's a depressing story. So prep your emotion meters for that one.
Right.
But also Lula won. We figured we'd talk some about that. I think you'll like the article I brought, and at least the title. I feel like you will resonate with that. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. But
I didn't read it, so this will be kind of a blind watch. Again, transparency. We prepped on different days. I prepped mine Monday. You prepped yesterday, as I had an event. I went to a comedy show that I paid months in advance for. So
nice.
Didn't have a chance to do that last night. But what I did read a little bit of it, I think, this morning. So I think I definitely will appreciate the take, considering that I don't think anyone is talking about that yet. But again, that's also permanent since Lula won over the weekend. And then our final story for tonight, as you guys know, might know, I have a separate channel called Kumano Mukwano, which I base on African issues. Well, actually, issues in relation to the African diaspora, but more especially Africa, since we barely talk about Africa at all, ever. But we're going to talk about CARICOM, because they're hiding some shit that is not necessarily known. That actually, honestly, I didn't even know until I read this article, which I believe you got for me. So
yes,
we're going to talk about CARICOM and what secrets they're hiding from the public that be interesting for you guys to know.
Yeah, that was good. More transparency. I didn't read that article. I just sent it to Collin because I was like, ooh, he likes Africa stuff. Let's see what he thinks of this. And so yeah, great thumbnail, by the way. We got to get you
Okay.
making bigger text though. That's the thing. You just got to make text
Well,
as big as possible.
no,
People are blind, you know?
yeah, true.
Like,
But yeah, so thank you guys for coming in. Let's quick roll call. So Warren, thank
spooky.
you for joining us. Gira,
Spooky's
thank you.
here.
Rick,
Kelly's here.
usual cast of characters. Bad Cookies, thank you for being here. Kelly,
Shouting out our
Um,
Halloween stream Monday on the network. You can find that.
let's
Warren
see.
was
I think
nice enough
Indy
to
is
stream that
also
for us.
here.
Yay, Indy.
So yeah, please subscribe to us. We definitely will. Actually, I'm going to give a like to the stream right now.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
just
you guys do the
put those
same
little
thing.
thumbs in there, and there's a little button
Um,
somewhere near there called share. You could hit that one too if you
Yeah.
wanted.
Share
Yeah.
this out. I think especially since this is definitely like most foreign policy
Yeah.
probably gone in a while.
Yeah.
So this will be, I think this will be worthwhile to share, especially to folks who are not as savvy as foreign policy. I'm not either, but it's good to talk about it, I think now, especially in light of everything that's happening in the world in connection to the US and other countries. But yeah, subscribe to us. As we keep saying, we're trying to hit 1K. By
777
next month.
right
Next
now.
month, we're trying to hit 1K. So if you guys
Yep.
give us a like and have your share friends, and hopefully they'll like us too, and they'll subscribe to us, then we'll be able to continue to do the work that we're doing as far as growing the network. And actually, I think this week is our anniversary, right?
Pretty close, yeah. I do believe.
So look for, I guess we're going to have a
This
anniversary
month, at
stream very
least.
soon. Yeah, this month would have been a year INN started streaming. So I'm sure we're going to celebrate as a network together, which we'll like to invite you all to. But other than me being a little crummy, how are you doing, Reef, before we get started?
I'm doing all right. You know, been trucking, getting shit done. You know how it is. So, but yeah, I'm excited for the stories. I think there's some good ones this week.
All right, so should we get started?
I think so. You ready?
So yeah. So I will admit this segment is probably going to be a little bit long, only because I want to try and give, well, mostly for me, try and give context to everything that's going on in Haiti right now. So I do want to give you guys like kind of a quick overview of what's happening. And then we're actually going to go into the article, you know, that I pulled for this. So,
Okay.
so we're going to hear from Claire Daly, who is a member of the European Parliament.
I like her.
And she had this to say regarding Haiti, if you don't mind.
Hit and play for you.
Hitting play for me, thank you.
Haiti is the site of the first and only successful slave revolution in history. Haitians won their independence from France in 1804 and immediately abolished slavery, becoming the first place in the world to do so. It was also the first state to outlaw racism in its constitution. Haiti was a beacon of light for the world, and it was punished for it. It was punished over and over again by France, by the US, through a series of coups, invasions, occupations, assassinations, through relentless meddling and crushing debt. They were determined that this beacon of freedom would be extinguished because it presented a bold challenge to the dread logic of capital and empire. But the Haitian people kept fighting through. Theirs is a light that never goes out. And so, it's still being punished. The meddling goes on. If Haiti is a mess, and it is, then Europe and the US are to blame. If we want to support the Haitian people, and we should, we'll stand up to the US, the world's bully, tell them to get out of Haiti and get out of it ourselves.
Okay, so as Rick said very eloquently, be a Claire Daly, not an AOC. Imagine if she said rhetoric like this.
Yeah.
Or any one of the squad or any Democrat in Congress, you know, regarding anywhere else in the world, you know, like I'm sure like Ukraine will probably get is getting a lot of love, but not these other countries. So So just giving you an overall context, just as far as Haiti. So now we're going to turn to Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! To talk more specifically what's happening in Haiti right now, just to kind of catch up a little bit in terms of what is happening there. This is going to be long. I will warn you, this is going to be about 10 minutes, but I think it's important for us to hear Amy interview this person. I can't remember her name right now. I'm sorry. In terms of what's happening to Haiti from her perspective. And I think that'll give you a better clarification as to the article that I'm going to read after this. So you can play it.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now! Co-host Juan Gonzalez in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Well, we begin today's show looking at the crisis in Haiti, where protesters continue to demand the resignation of the U.S.-backed Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, and against the deployment of international troops to Haiti amidst a growing humanitarian crisis. A blockade of a key port in Port-au-Prince, the capital, by gangs has led to a critical shortage of fuel, food, and water for millions of people. Meanwhile, Haiti's fighting a new outbreak of cholera. On Monday, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called for a, quote, armed action to reopen the port.
It's an absolutely nightmarish situation for the population of Haiti, especially Port-au-Prince. I believe that we need not only to strengthen the police, strengthening it with training, with equipment, with a number of other measures, but that in the present circumstances, we need an armed action to release the port and to allow for a humanitarian corridor to be established.
On Monday, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, pushed for the UN Security Council to authorize a non-UN international security mission to go to Haiti.
The second resolution we're working on would authorize a non-UN international security assistance mission to help improve the security situation and enable the flow of desperately needed humanitarian aid.
But in the streets of Haiti, many protesters have condemned the United States for pushing to intervene again in Haiti. Protesters are also demanding the resignation of Ariel Henry, who has ruled since the assassination of Jovenel Moïse on July 7, 2021. This is former Haitian senator and presidential candidate Moïse Jean-Charles.
Freedom. We are not in the states of the United States. We are not provinces of the United States. We are a country. We are a republic. They cannot give us orders. This time we do not need them. If Ariel Henry does not resign and the bank officials don't change their minds, we will make a revolution in the country.
We're joined now by Guerline Joseph. She is co-founder and executive director of Haitian Bridge Alliance, which advocates for humanitarian assistance to Haitians and other Black immigrants from the Caribbean and Africa. Today, she's joining us from Mexico City, where she's looking into the impacts of the Title 42 pandemic Trump-era policy that's been used to block at least 2 million migrants, including tens of thousands of Haitians, from applying for asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border. The Biden administration recently expanded Title 42 to begin expelling Venezuelan nationals. Guerline Joseph, welcome back to Democracy Now! Before we move to what's happening at the border, let's talk about what's happening in Haiti right now. You have the reports that chaos is engulfing the country, that it's become so total, the social fabric is so torn that the country is on the verge of collapse. And then you have the UN Secretary General calling for military action. Can you respond to the protests and the response?
Good morning, Amy. Thank you so much for having us. What we are seeing in Haiti right now is extremely painful as a Haitian woman, as a Haitian American woman, to see how the country has been dipping into this abyss. And we have been in communications with civil societies in Haiti to understand what is needed on the ground. And they are telling us they need a Haitian-led solution in order for the country to get out of where we are right now. As you mentioned, Amy, rampant violence, gang violence, political turmoil, assassination of the president, still no answer. And we are seeing people really protesting on the street for the right to sovereign solution to the issues that are happening. And they are saying no to an invasion, no to armed invasion from the international community, because every time there is the so-called help invasion that people go to Haiti, result in chaos. You also mentioned the cholera pandemic that is in the rise right now, and that itself is a result of the UN being in Haiti after the earthquake. So we are seeing and hearing, and we are taking the time to understand what Haiti needs right now and how we move forward.
And Gerline Joseph, I wanted to ask you, we keep hearing about this gang violence that is rampant throughout Haiti, but there are some Haitians in the U.S. and as well as other radicals and socialists here in this country who say that all these gangs are not alike. For instance, that the FRG9, the revolutionary forces of the G9 family led by Jimmy Cherizet, are much more political, and they're the ones that are dealing with this blockade of the port, whereas other gangs like the GPEP are actually part of work with the Ariel Henry government and the police, and the United States seems to be more focused on FRG9. Could you talk about whether there are differences between these gangs and what's your sense of how the narrative is being shaped here in the U.S.?
Absolutely. One thing I want to clarify is the fact that this gang pandemic, this great gang phenomenon, is not native to Haiti. It's imported to Haiti. We are not used to this type of violence when it comes to gang. This is a new system that is being put in place, or that has been put in place to destabilize the country. I do not know who is supporting which gang. I do not know which activities are being supporting either by outside sources or people within the government. But what we are seeing right now is that people are fearful. We are seeing entire neighborhood being displaced in Martissant, in Croix des Bouquets, in Pétionville, where we never had any violence before, that we are seeing all places in the country dealing with gang violence. And again, it is imperative that we understand the narrative that's being shared is that Haiti has never had to deal with this level of gang violence. This is new. This is backed by many different other outside sources, and we must understand that we have to come to a resolve where we rid the country of violence so people don't have to flee. Right now, we are seeing people fleeing by boat, either going to Puerto Rico, to the Bahamas, to Miami, and they are dying on the way here. We are seeing people fleeing from Haiti, making their way to the border in Mexico because they cannot be at home. We are seeing the political turmoil, the gang violence that are being financed or supported by whomever, that are creating a space where people cannot survive. That is why when we speak to civil societies in Haiti, we understand that in order for us to move forward, there must be sustainability, there must be proper school, there must be proper hospital, there must be, the agriculture needs to be revived in order for people to be able to be safe at home and not have to flee.
Can you talk about the Montana Accords, what they are, and the group that developed them following the assassination of Haiti's former president in 2021?
I am not an expert of the Montana Accord, but what we understand is that over 500 groups, civil societies, political groups have come together to come up with a solution that is led by Haitians to be able to find a way moving forward. What we understand from the Montana Accord, it is the only alternative we have right now to really getting ourselves out of the political turmoil, possibly having a safe transition where then we can move to a better space in Haiti. So again, I am not an expert in the Montana Accord, but from understanding and speaking with many different groups and people who are involved, it seems to be a good alternative in order to move forward. But what we are seeing is that there's no real engagement between the Montana Accord parties, the international communities, people who wants to support Haiti and wants to be able to get a way out of the issues we are dealing right now. So we are calling on the international community, on the U.S. and Canada, to not side with with the political people in power, but to make sure that they are including the civil societies, the people of Haiti, who are able to take their future in hand and see how we can work together. At this point, we believe that Haiti needs support. Haiti needs to be stabilized. Haiti needs to have sustainable ecosystem so that people can live, people can prosper, not just survive, but thrive.
So you're in Mexico City looking at...
We good. So that was long. I apologize, kind of. But anything that struck out to you, Reef?
Couple of things. One, why are we the world's police?
Right.
Two, that lady blinked a lot.
That aside,
I mean, I
don't
feel
think
like
she might be used to the camera though, so that's probably hers.
But it seemed like she was trying to convey a message, and I just don't know Morse code. You know, like that's like, but she needs help. Collin, they're holding her. We need to go get her. But anyway, I mean, I think it was Jera in the chat that was asking about like whether it would be better allies than us. Mentioned Cuba.
Right.
I mean, you your family comes from the islands. What have you heard anything from them about this situation, or you know?
No, I haven't. Actually, it was my dad's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Dad. So I was supposed to call him today. But I do want to ask him about this because he's actually heading back to Barbados this weekend. But I think a couple of things that struck out to me. Because I've heard this, you know, murmurings on Twitter like they're gangs. These gangs, for the most part, seem to be politically motivated in a way to kind of stir up trouble. So to give the US an excuse to be like, oh, we got to come in. So, and as Joseph said, you know, like, I feel a lot of it is due to the fact that the US has US-backed politicians in the country right now who are not necessarily working for the best interests of the people there. Sound familiar?
Yes.
So there seems as, you know, a very high disconnect between the politicians / elite in the country versus everyone else. And I think basically Haitians are kind of like, we're seeing the bullshit and we're not going to stand for it. And this is why they're kind of revolting. So I want to kind of give that context in terms of why, you know, like, you know, the issues as to why the US is looking to intervene, but also just kind of thinking of history, just, you know, just in what Claire Daly said, and I thought about this morning. I almost feel like for Haiti, this is kind of like perpetual punishment in a sense of like, this is the first predominantly Black country that basically whooped Europe's ass, and in the West, I think it's basically like, you're not going to do that again. Like, we're going to make your life a living hell, for like having these Negroes, basically upside, the French, slash the West. So I always feel like, Haiti's kind of paying the price, as always have, for rebelling against the West. And so I just kind of looking at history, and again, that's just, more speculation on my part, but I don't think that's far off the mark, considering how often, the US now is like wanting to come in and support Haiti, quote unquote, but each time there's like more shit happening. So give you all of that context. Now we can get...
Quick, hold on, let me look it up before I move on. Human Love Solidarity says Biden wants Haitians to go to Gitmo, right? And our friend of the show, Misty Winston, aka at Sarcasm Stardust on Twitter, has been supporting... Who is it? I'm looking on her Twitter as we speak. Scroll. I'm looking for it. At Guantanamo Andy Worthington. If people would like to go find that on the Twitters for that. Here, I can pull this up. Hold on. You can do something along the lines of this, like Miss Misty has here. But yeah, that's at Guantanamo Andy. You should look up. But anyway, not to digress too far.
But anyway, so now you guys have the context. Let's get into the article. So hopefully it should make a lot more sense to you all. So written by probably one of our favorite reporters, Brett Wilkins from Common Dreams. Haitians peace activists denounce plans for another US-backed intervention. Haitians are saying no to the armed invasion from the international community because every time there is so-called help invasion, it results in chaos, said one activist.
Okay. You went the wrong way.
No.
Yep.
I am.
There we go. Oh, God.
As
Slides.
U.S. Secretary,
Go ahead.
Yeah. It I think when it stops for a while, it tends to go backwards.
Gets upset with us.
Yeah.
You didn't love us enough.
Yeah. As U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met Thursday in Ottawa to discuss a possible unilateral invasion of Haiti in the name of restoring stability, quote unquote, Haitian and anti-war voices denounced the prospect of yet another U.S.-backed intervention, which they say will bring the opposite of stability to a crisis-ridden nation. So this is their tweet here. If you want to go a little closer, I met with Justin Trudeau in Ottawa to discuss our shared priorities, from strengthening North American competitiveness to supporting Ukraine and Haiti. It is always a pleasure to speak about our close friendship and common values, even more so while on Canadian soil. So that's what Anthony Blinken said. And then Jay Pierre responded on Twitter, look up the Ottawa Initiative from 2003 to see how Canada, France, and the US decided to destroy Haitian sovereignty through a coup d'etat of Haiti's democratically elected president. So kind of, I hinted at this earlier, how they have US-backed politicians who are running the country now that have, I think, supported in the demise of the country right now, or since.
Right.
The Biden administration is seeking the nation to lead a rapid employment international military force, an intervention backed by the United States Security Council and request by de facto Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry to quell the gang violence that has spiked since last year's presidential assassination, a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, and a hurricane that devastated much of the deeply impoverished nation. While some Haitians, especially elites, and U.S. corporate media push for armed intervention, other Haitians and peace activists have taken to the streets and to social media to condemn any new invasion. In a recent interview with Democracy Now!, Gerlene Youssef, the executive director of the Haitian Bridge Alliance, said that Haitians are saying no to an invasion, no to armed invasion from the international community, because every time there is a so-called help invasion that people go to Haiti, it results in chaos.
For one, a help invasion. Help invasion. What?
Well, I think the biggest question is how. How do you deem how are you going to help Haiti? And stability doesn't cut it to me, you know.
We're fucked.
Well, they are, but like notice how they are just like, oh, we're going in the name of stability. And the same with Ukraine. Oh, we're going in the name of we're supplying weapons in the name of arming, forces there to defend themselves from Russia, So, it's the idea of like, and honestly, I wish Haitians would kind of call this out a little bit more in terms of like, what kind of help what kind of help are you trying to seek? Because we know what the US does is like, whenever they go to a country, there's always, like a reason. And given their US-backed politicians, it makes sense that it's not necessarily for good reasons. More likely it isn't. And as I said, the populace there is not feeling it. So that's why there's protesting. And again, as I said, a lot of these gangs, I'm fairly certain, because I think Yosef kind of hinted at this, but I basically think these gangs are politically motivated by, the US government and the Haitian politicians there to kind of stir up shit.
So that they can go in and do that. Like,
right, in the guise of, oh, we'll help you with these gangs. That's what I'm kind of hearing from all of this, when really, as I said, it's more like for essentially like punishment, in terms of Haiti overthrowing France back.
I'm still help invasion is insane.
Right. I'm Michael Jordan. Stop it. Get some help.
So actually, I'm going to go to the next slide. So Madame Bookman, she tweeted out, US-style humanitarian invention. It's like a massive blow to the spine. It has completely paralyzed Haiti's development. Haitians call for a localized Haitian solution based on the principles of self-determination. So as this guy says, we need a better country without the help of America. So that's what the locals are saying.
Yeah.
Jemima Pierre, a social cultural anthropologist, UCLA professor and coordinator of the Black Alliance for Peace team on Haiti, said in a Wednesday interview on the progressive radio show Between the Lines that the Haitian people absolutely do not want foreign armed soldiers on the ground. Haiti has been invaded many times by the US government, Pierre continued, and every single time it's been completely complete brutality, rape. And so the last thing people want is to have these soldiers going around with guns and tanks pointing at them, right? Each time the United States has invaded or backed intervention in Haiti, the only nation born from a successful slave revolt is decided the restoration of order and stability as its pretext. The US, which has coveted Haitian territory since the 19th century, used civil unrest sparked by gruesome presidential assassination to justify a 1915 invasion and subsequent 19-year occupation. US Marines wrote time at the end of the occupation, landed at Port-au-Prince, and began forcibly soothing everybody. Thousands of Haitians who resisted and were killed. Rape of Haitian women and children by US troops ran rampant and went unpunished. Occupation forces implemented forced labor, Jim Crow segregation, and oversaw the looting of the country's finances and resources for the benefit of Wall Street banks and investors. All the while, US politicians and press hailed what they called America's civilizing mission. The US will occupy Haiti until 1934. In the decades that followed, successful administrations in Washington supported Haitian dictators, including the brutal Duvalier dynasty. Democracy was finally restored in the 1990 election of then priest but progressive populist Jean-Bertrand Aristide, but then a year later he was ousted in a military coup whose plotter included CIA operatives. What
the fuck?
Like,
Sounds like Brazil.
The effing F? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, notice the similarities between Haiti and Brazil.
Yeah.
Because isn't this what happened to Lula, basically?
Well, and I mean, we can go back to the Saint Denis. Like, how far do we need to go back here? Oliver North? Like,
right.
You know, the Spanish-American War? We're going to remember the Maine real quick? Like, this is... I want to read that to people, like, forcibly soothing, for one.
Right.
The fuck is that?
Right.
Two, like, rape of Haitian women and children by U.S. troops ran rampant. Like, not just like it happened. Like, was rampant.
Right.
And we're doing it again, pretty much.
Right. Right.
Holy shit. Okay.
Right. So this is the country that we live in, folks.
Yay.
But anyway, so remember this, Jem? I think we've forgotten about this. I didn't. But if you want to play this clip, we'll see what our boy Biden has to say.
I don't want to, but I will.
I'm sure people would have heard this before, but
yeah,
you know, but you can play it and just refresh our memory as to what he has said regarding Haiti.
If Haiti, a god-awful thing to say, if Haiti just quietly sunk into the Caribbean or rose up 300 feet, it wouldn't matter a whole lot in terms of our...
What do you mean? What do you mean? If it did rise up 300, it absolutely would. That would be a ridiculous story if it just rose out of the water.
Play it again, please.
Yes, sir.
If Haiti, a god-awful thing to say, if Haiti just quietly sunk...
Which he recognizes that it's an awful thing to say, first and foremost. Right. Like, and then says it.
Sunk into the Caribbean or rose up 300 feet, it wouldn't matter a whole lot in terms of our...
In terms of our infrastructure.
Right. It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't matter a whole lot. So if you're saying this, then Biden, why the hell are you why is the U.S. trying to infiltrate? If Haiti doesn't matter to you that much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. If it don't matter to you, why you
bothered?
Why you worried?
Get out.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it. Get the fuck out.
I think thou doth protest too much, sir.
Right. But
if Haiti...
No. So then President Bill Clinton did not agree. And that year, his administration secured the United Nations Security Council authorization to stage a U.S.-led invasion to restore democracy to Haiti. Clinton sent 25,000 troops on a nation-building mission, and Aristide was returned to the Palais National. 10 years later, he was ousted in another U.S.-backed coup. So basically, the guy who essentially stabilized the country, who was a progressive populist. I wouldn't say he was communist, but definitely like in the line of kind of like a social dem, like probably like Bernie.
Yeah.
Was ousted because my guess is he actually wanted to help Haitians, the working class. And so like, especially with the US ties to Wall Street, they were like, oh no, we can't have that. So very easy to remove him, basically. When UN troops deployed to Haiti following a devastating 2010 earthquake, they brought more than stability they were tasking with maintaining. A cholera epidemic traced back to Nepalese UN peacemakers infected more than 800,000 people in 4 regional countries, killing over 10,000 of them. A fresh cholera outbreak has been cited by some people seeking renewed intervention in Haiti, but Yosef said that the result is a result of the UN being in Haiti after the earthquake. In related Haiti news, U.S. Senator Ed Markey and 15 colleagues, including progressives Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, this week urged the Biden administration to immediately extend and redesignate temporary protected status TPS for Haiti, a move that will allow Haitians currently in the United States to remain in the country until until conditions improve in their homeland. So, actually,
how about ask them not to invade?
Right.
How about
that?
Sending them aid instead of, where are we sending all that aid to? Like, how about anything?
How about leaving Haiti alone? Have the people elect who they want to elect.
That's like,
president.
Please don't deport Haitians. That's that's okay. Like, that's what they're gonna go with.
Right.
Jesus
Haiti's
Christ.
current TPS status is set to expire in February 2023. The Biden administration has supported tens of thousands of Haitian asylum seekers. You remember, I'm sure in the spring, there were pictures on Twitter of, immigrants getting whipped on horseback by, the U.S. Yeah. So remember that, because this is a result of this. Many of whom report human rights abuses by U.S. immigration authorities, despite the grave humanitarian situation.
There you go.
Situation in the country. Thank you, Reef.
You're welcome.
All right. So there we go. This is why people are saying, get your mitts off of Haiti. So hopefully we educated you guys a little bit in light of, what's happening in Haiti right now, and how you guys can help spread more noise about this, especially for our Haitian brothers and sisters who might be watching. But I say all of that in terms of, this, I think it's probably just as well in what is happening with Breonna Joy Gray, because she said this like in her, in her most recent podcast on bad faith, and she's getting smeared for it right now. Like the idea of like, we're sending all these billions of dollars to Ukraine, and I forgot the guy and I don't care about him, but he was basically like, think of the Ukrainian children, whatever, to justify the idea that we're sending money for war to Ukraine. And basically the argument that Bree is saying, whether or not you agree or not with Ukraine, that's fine, whatever. But like, let's be consistent here. Like, if you're going to give money to Ukraine in supporting them, how come we're not giving the same kind of, care? And I'm not saying we should step in anywhere near Haiti at all, but like, there's no talk of like giving money to Haiti in helping to restore, the nation, in helping to, get our backed politicians out of there and have the people elect who they want to govern them. They already had Aristide, and they were perfectly happy with him, and then the US was like, fuck no, we actually need, we actually want to steal more of your resources. And I'm not sure what they got at this point. The country has been raped and pillaged, for over 200 years. So I can't imagine what they continue to go back for, to be quite honest. But as I said, I feel this is kind of like the perpetual punishment that Haitians are suffering, because they actually fought against the West and won. And the West is like, that will never let you happen again. And you will pay for that dearly, basically for the rest of your days, basically. So, but that's what Breonna was saying, in terms of like, if we're going to have that kind of support for Ukraine, why not have that support for Haiti? Why not have that support for Yemen? Why not have that support for Somalia? Why don't we have that support for Syria? So, but the US is going in there in the guise of stability, due to gangs that I'm sure are propped up by the US government, in the guise of like, oh, we need to go in there to help destabilize it. And they're doing more of the shit that they've, and in the article and what the clips have said, from the past.
Oh, that whole U.S. involvement in Haiti previously is fucking wild. Let alone now. I mean, It reminds me of like with all the charity stuff and gang stuff, like, you know, the white hats, that kind of thing. Like the way U.S. intelligence operates in the rest of the world is
right. And actually,
ridiculous.
You just brought up a good thought. Like I've seen, not so much now, but I remember when I was younger, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen this on TV, you know, like Save the Children and all this kind of stuff. Like you see a lot of those commercials where they show kids with descended bellies and like flies on them, you know, and they say, you know, support this child for like $10 like a month or something like that to ensure that they get fed and all that kind of stuff. You know, honestly, you know, like as a kid / teenager, I thought that was like so cool. And I actually tried to convince my mom to actually do something like that. But I think now as I gotten older, and I think especially being in this space, it's like, that's such a half measure. That's not going to help the people. You know, we don't want them to be dependent on us. You know, and being in Africa, that's what, you know, my mentor Ronnie has said. They don't want to be dependent on the West to help them. They want to be able to thrive on their own, you know, without the West's influence or infiltration in these countries in the guise of humanitarian aid, you know, or we're doing this out of the kindness of our hearts because we have money and we want to help you and we want to support you. No, like, and again, kind of similar, you know, if you're in a socialist way of thinking, help workers seize the means of production. So in this case, help people be able to run their countries in a way that is very fitting and appropriate given the culture and the society of the countries that are involved. And I think, honestly, on the left, we need to be talking a lot more about this. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this more of Lula in a bit.
Yes, we definitely will be.
But focus those conversations on that. Like, how can we support what's happening in Haiti so that there's no U.S. interference, that the people are free, truly, to elect who they want to elect? And not to say they may not need resources, but give them the means that they're able to do that independently. That's what the things that we should be talking about.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think specifically, like, it's the world policing that is still frustrating as shit. That we still think that we get to dictate what the rest of the world gets to do.
Right,
you know?
And we're not doing it here. That's the thing. It's like, we can't even take care of our people. It'd be one thing if we're doing good things here. Fine.
Well,
you know, help other countries. But we don't even have our shit together here.
It leads us to our next story, which is definitely in line with that. So this story is from John KIRIAKOU, right? Titled American Gulag. And it's from Consortium, which they've been doing great work. But it's about Western journalists who are providing breathless depictions of the harsh conditions facing U.S. basketball star Brittney Griner in Russia. And KIRIAKOU's asking, have none of these been inside a U.S. prison? Like, you know, completely unaware. But, yeah, we've talked about Brittney Griner a few times in this light before a little bit, and especially in regards to narrative management of the Ukraine situation, you know, that sort of thing.
Right.
But, you know, so all of the major media outlets announced recently that former American women's basketball sensation Brittney Griner has been moved to a Russian penal colony after an appellate court rejected the appeal of her conviction and the sentence of 9 years for trying to smuggle a vial of THC oil into Russia. So, the sentence is draconian, but it's not unlike other drug sentences here in the United States, but that's not the point that KIRIAKOU wants to make here. What I do want to point out is the U.S. media's use of the term Russian penal colony. Other outlets have thrown out the word Gulag, hearkening back to the days of Joseph Stalin. NBC News reported that Griner was transferred to a penal colony, the successor to the infamous Russian Gulag. Insider Magazine said that Griner fears facing inhumane treatment at Russia's penal colonies where abuse is common, disease is rampant, and labor is forced. Even the storied UPI, United Press International, said that Griner is going to a penal colony, the descendants of the notorious Soviet-era gulags, where prisoners have been subjected to harsh treatment and poor conditions. Prisoners in the system have been beaten by other inmates, endured torture, and forced to watch Russian propaganda for hours every day. Any of this sound familiar to, you know, what's happening closer to home? Any of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to see where this is going because I haven't read this yet. So
It gets heavy. These breathless admonitions are nothing more than a bad joke. Have none of these journalists and writers ever been inside an American prison? They wouldn't have far to look to see that the U.S. prison system gains nothing by casting aspersions on the Russian system or pretty much any other system, including Haiti. Like, anyway, so KIRIAKOU wants to point out a particular American, Alec Arapaho, a Native American, was 21 when he arrived at the BOP's medium security Federal Correctional Institute in Florence, Colorado. He tried to hide his homosexuality, but another Native American prisoner, William Mexican, a gang member, had already heard that Arapaho was gay. Mexican attacked Arapaho, extorted money from him, accused him of being gay, and threatened to rape him. Eventually, the Native Americans at the prison met on the recreation yard and, after a disagreement that neared violence, a faction led by Mexican voted Arapaho off the yard due to his sexual orientation. That meant Arapaho had to leave the prison immediately or be beaten. Arapaho asked his stepmother to call the prison and intervene to help him seek protective custody status. She did, and he was placed in the segregating housing unit at USP Florence, a maximum security facility adjacent to the prison. Wait, what? He went from like medium, now he's at maximum.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So staff who investigated the protective custody request found a video recording of the meeting in the yard and interviewed Mexican, who said there would be trouble for Arapaho if he returned. They nonetheless filed a report stating that they could find no evidence to support Arapaho's claim that he was in danger. Mexican was later transferred to the USP, and because a staff member only looked at his paperwork, not Arapaho's, he was placed in a cell with him. Arapaho told the guards who escorted Mexican to his cell that he was nervous about having Mexican celling with him, but Mexican assured them there would be no problems, and they left. Over the course of the next 3 days, Mexican repeatedly assaulted Arapaho, forced him to perform oral sex, and anally raped him. Arapaho repeatedly stationed himself in front of the cell's video camera, often covered in blood, and hit the cell's distress button, but no one came to investigate. Mexico forced Arapaho to face the back wall when food was delivered so staff could not see his injuries. Finally, Mexican left the cell to go to recreation, and as soon as the cell door closed, Arapaho told the escorting guards he was in danger. He was moved to another cell, and a medical examination yielded evidence of the sexual assaults. An internal BOP investigation found that staff had failed to conduct cell checks every 30 minutes, as required by regulations, and has falsified documentation to show they had performed the rounds on time. The investigation sustained allegations of inattention to duty, failure to follow policy, and falsification of documents against 26 employees. Arapaho won $750,000 in a lawsuit against the BOP.
Good.
Yeah, he should have gotten more.
More, honestly, yeah. But
yeah, this is ridiculous. There's more. So earlier this year, a federal judge in New York awarded $273,246.88 to a prisoner who alleged that a guard beat him brutally and lied about the incident. Morgan Greenberger, a mentally ill prisoner, told a guard that he had eaten a toothbrush and he asked to be taken to the medical unit. He was placed on special watch where he was supposed to be under constant supervision so as to not hurt himself again. Greenberger asked guard Philip Roundtree for a bottle so that he could urinate. Roundtree told him to wait 15 minutes. Greenberger asked again 15 minutes later, and Roundtree responded, "You sure you want it?" He then placed the bottle just inside Greenberger's cell. When Greenberger reached down to pick it up, Roundtree began pummeling him with a baton on the back, arms, head, and shoulders so hard that the baton splintered into pieces. 2 hours later, other guards took Greenberger to a hospital where he received 5 staples to close the wound on his head. Greenberger was also charged with initiating an assault and refusing a direct order. He was given 50 days in solitary confinement. Nearly a year later, after Greenberger was released from solitary, the verdict was reversed, and he filed his federal action. As if this wasn't bad enough, we're supposed to believe that medical care in American prisons is so much better than it is in Russian prisons? KIRIAKOU asks. I mean, thoughts so far on any of those two stories, Collin?
I mean, this reminds me, what's that HBO prison show called? Shoot. Someone in the chat, I know. Someone in the chat, I know some of you know, but you know, this is kind of what it reminds me of. But I think in terms of like Oz, there we go. Thank you. I should
not to be confused with our Oz.
Yeah,
different Oz.
I should remember that. Thanks, Warren. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I think, you know, and I shout out to Sabi for making this point, I think weeks ago in her stream, but I think we've been indoctrinated to hate Russia from like, really, I think for me, the time I've been alive. You know, look at, you know, the movies, especially in the 80s, given the Cold War, you know, like there's always this thing of like Russia versus the United States, you know, and I feel like a lot of why we're kind of like, so I think people feel so passionately about Ukraine is because Russia is involved, and I think we've been kind of more or less indoctrinated to hate Russia, you know? And so the idea that what KIRIAKOU is kind of saying here is like, yeah, what's happening to Griner? Yeah, it's shit, you know, like, and I'm kind of mixed about it, you know, like, should she be in jail for that long for having THC? No, but then again, like, you know, as a person who travels, not a lot, but often enough to know, you know, when you're in another country, you go by their rules, you know, and that may include, you know, how you use your weed or whatever substance. So if you're not following the rules, you're going to get consequences for it. So, you know, like, but the idea of like, oh, she's almost like she's a political prisoner, you know, in Russia. I think this is kind of like where it was kind of going, you know, to make it seem like, oh, Russian, you know, gulags are shit, they're bad, you know, she's going to suffer. But if she were here, it wouldn't make it much of a difference. She'd be still suffering, you know, looking at the prison population, and there are prisons here. So I think it's kind of like the propaganda in terms of like us immediately being like Russia's shit and not looking at us and being like, we're shit, you know? I would argue that in a lot of ways we're shittier because at least in Russia, they have universal healthcare, you know? So there's certain things that they're doing a lot better in Russia. And look, I'm saying this because, you know, I'm not a fan of Putin. I've never have been. He's a capitalist through and through. So he's under the same shit that, you know, that people are in the West. But at least for him, there are certain things that are pretty standard that he has provided for his people. Like Nick reported on this. Was it Nick? I think it was either Nick or Savvy. I think this week reported that Putin has a 75 to 80% approval rating in Russia right now.
Yeah.
Compared to like Biden, who's like in the 40s. Like no president in my lifetime has ever hit maybe 60. Maybe Obama at his best was maybe at 60. I don't remember any president in my lifetime that hit like 70% or more. So hate Putin all you want, but he's at least doing something to kind of help the Russian people that people are recognizing, and that they're rewarding him with their loyalty.
Me and Indy have been having this talk about Putin, and this will take us off on a tangent, but I'd love if people would, hash that out among themselves on the Twitters and all the spaces they're in. Do you think Putin is socialist? Like, would you consider him even a democratic socialist?
No. Well,
I mean, if you think about what his country has and what he's like, how much policy do you think he's,
Again, I would give him the marker of, it's funny. Like, I feel like I think that's actually a good question. We don't think about that.
No.
I'm
not saying he's communist. Like, I'm not saying.
But it'd be curious, like, put that on Twitter, people, like, and see. But even in the chat, like, where do you think Putin falls on the Overton window? Like, for me,
I mean, ex-KGB
I would almost
agent,
argue,
like
probably our equivalent of a social dem.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, maybe more to center, but
to some
actually,
degree,
but to some degree. But I think then again,
less than
being
here,
center in Europe means a different thing here. Because, so I think kind of removing it from that context, like, I think for us, he will definitely be classified probably as a, dem soc.
Yeah.
But I think like in Europe, he would consider more centrist.
Sure.
But the idea of like you're centrist, like there are a lot of social policies that even if you're to the right, you're for.
Well,
like
that he's not gotten rid of, or that he's not like, I mean,
maybe
again,
in terms. So
like
maybe in terms of like the world, he's probably like a true center versus like our center here.
Yeah.
Which is more shifted to the right.
I mean, just as a leader,
right.
like as a leader of a country, like, let alone what he's done in his personal life and like how much he has kept control of Russia, that kind of stuff. Like,
right.
But
like
what his
Warren
policy,
saying,
I mean,
Warren's saying he's pretty conservative. Yeah, I could see that. But again,
compared to here,
sure. But I think Europe, sure. But again, even as a conservative, there's certain issues you don't touch.
Like, I'd love to look at like what policies he's actually supported over the entire span he's been a leader. But I mean,
that
if we're just gonna go point for point,
that actually sounds like a segment that we should do.
Yeah,
look into this a little bit more.
I feel like it's a lot of work though too.
True, but I feel like I don't think it would be that hard to kind of look at what is his ideology like.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not going to be that hard, know, and then from there kind of determine like where does he fall politically. But again, at bare minimum, he is providing for Russia right now.
Yeah, infrastructure and healthcare and
care and all of that. So it's like you do socialist things, people are going to reward you with, as I said, their loyalty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would agree. Probably more conservative, but again, relative to Europe. I would say in terms of here, he's probably more what we considered like a social dem, probably a little bit more to the right center. But at least, for certain things they have in Russia that he hasn't gotten rid of, as you said.
So KIRIAKOU wants to point out another example of what's happening here in our gulags. As just one example, let's look at the case of Marque Davies. The 27-year-old was a prisoner in the Kansas Department of Corrections, where Corazon, the largest prison healthcare solutions provider, has an exclusive contract to provide medical care. Davis went to Corazon, I guess that's what it is, nurse saying that he felt weakness in his arms and legs. The nurse determined that Davies was malingering, that is, making it all up so he didn't have to work. He was fined $2 and told not to do it again. Months later, with the numbness worsening, Davis began to complain that he felt like something was, quote, eating his brain. In fact, something was eating his brain. It was an untreated fungus that caused his vision to blur, his speech to slur, and his cognition to become so impaired that he began to drink his own urine. Davies finally had a heart attack and was taken to a local Kansas City hospital. A CT scan revealed dramatic swelling of the brain. A day later, he was dead. Davies' lawyer hopes to prove in court that this was not an isolated incident, but a clear and consistent pattern of Corazon delaying, postponing, or not providing necessary medical treatment. An ACLU spokesman said, Corazon is simply writing off the damages that they're having to pay as the cost of doing business without doing anything meaningful to improve. And what about forced labor? This is perhaps the biggest joke of all Western coverage of Griner's imprisonment. The Constitution of the United States actually enshrines forced prison labor.
Right.
The 13th Amendment states quite clearly in Section 1. Collin, would you like to read that for the people in the chat?
Sure. Neither slavery or involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any other place subject to their jurisdiction.
Except, key word there. So slavery exists in the United States. It's literally in writing. So KIRIAKOU wants to write, I feel sorry for Brittany Griner. I really do. She got a raw deal. She didn't appear to have criminal intent, and Russia's drug laws are draconian, but so are America's. The media are remiss in pointing fingers at the Russians while ignoring exactly the same problems in the U.S. prison system. How's that work, Collin? You point one finger at somebody. How many are pointing back at you?
3.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure you knew how many fingers I was holding up. Perhaps they should reflect on something that Russian author Fyodor Dostoevsky opined on when he wrote, "The degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons." He was right. Thoughts, Collin?
It kind of actually took a turn. I didn't expect it to go in that direction. But again, my thought still stands. It's just the idea that we've been propagandized with Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad since really, like, not even since 2016. I can argue since the 80s, especially given the Cold War, like 70s, 80s, and it's just a deflection, and like pointing at Russia and saying, Russia is shit, but then not looking at America and being like, we're shit too. And if anything, maybe worse. So again, as I said, and KIRIAKOU said in the article, like, I feel bad for Brittany, but again, like lesson for you all. Check the country status on drugs to see if you are able to take them, because if you're caught, especially in their country, you're not necessarily going to get the same, license as you might. But then again, I would almost argue if she was here on weed, the same shit will probably happen here for her. Honestly, I mean, like, as a normal citizen, like, since she's, an athlete, I'm sure it wouldn't be as bad for her if she got caught here. But again, for regular people, like Black people, we're getting arrested all the time for weed possession here. So what the fuck is the difference? She got caught in Russia for THC. Black people are getting locked up here for barely having any weed, you know, and they're probably in worse prisons than they probably are in Russia. So, yeah, I think, you know, it's just the hypocrisy is just astounding. And I think it's just kind of amazing that people who don't think critically enough are not able to kind of look at it. Oh, they will say, oh, it's whataboutism. No, it's not whataboutism. It's the idea of like, you know, we're calling out Russia for their shit, fine, but you got to do that without not calling on our shit because we're not any better. Like in many cases, we're probably worse.
Yeah. Far worse in some respects.
Right. And given, you know, like, as I said, this reminds me of an Oz episode.
Yes. Yeah. Orange is the New Black for those kids at home. That's their version.
Right.
So the one that always got me, there was a scene in that where he put like, might have been The Longest Yard, where he put like some explosive in a light bulb. That one was always crazy. You turn on the light bulb and it blows up. Like that's fucked up. But yeah, no, it fucking great article from KIRIAKOU there.
Yeah, that was good. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Showcase some terrible stories, but yeah. Well, and it leads us to what else America is doing. Meanwhile,
what else is America doing that, you know, like,
speaking of Oz, Oz King of Kings in the chat.
Right.
You know?
Hi, Oz.
Not that Oz. He's Ozymandias. If no one's read that poem, they should. It's not the prison show. That's not what he's named after. But anyway, speaking of what's going on with America and what we're doing.
So this is an opinion piece by Nick Trust. So I hadn't heard of him before, so I had to look him up. So he's an investigative journalist in the line of Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate. He's done a lot of work for Tom Dispatch, as you can see here. He's also written for the Intercept as well. He has a couple of books as well. He's actually based in New York, actually. So he actually went to Rutgers in Jersey. Shout out to Rutgers. But what I think, not to say he's known for this, but what he's kind of been known for is kind of looking at AFRICOM and all their shady dealings in Africa and basically being, you know, shut out as far as investigating the true meaning as to why AFRICOM essentially exists and what are they really doing in Africa. Okay. So like I said, Reef sent this to me, and I probably might just put this clip in Kamala Luquano's channel as well.
Sure.
But this is what he reported on. So getting TS, but U.S. Africa Command at CARICOM. Actually, until I read this article, I didn't know what that was what CARICOM was. I thought it was just CARICOM Command. The idea that there's U.S. attached to it, it was just kind of like, oh shit. Like, but being in Africa, it makes a whole lot more sense now, given, you know, so part of my ignorance, but, you know, what U.S. Africa Command doesn't want you to know. What's the U.S. military doing in Africa? It's an enigma, right in the riddle, straitjacketed in secrecy and hogtied by red tape. Or at least it would be if we were up to the Pentagon. 10 years ago, I embarked on a quest to answer that question at Tom Dispatch, chronicling and growing American military presence on that continent, a buildup of both logistical capacities and capabilities and outposts, and the possibility that far more was occurring out of sight. Keep your eye on Africa, I concluded. The U.S. military is going to make news there for years to come. There we go. I knew I had a story when U.S. I'm just saying CARICOM from here out, fair to answer basic questions honestly. And the command's reaction to the article told me that I also had a new beat. Not long after publication, AFRICOM wrote a letter of complaint to my editor, Tom Engelhardt, attempting to discredit my investigation. I responded point by point in a follow-up piece. The command claimed the U.S. was doing little on that continent, had one measly base there, right? And was transparent about its operations. I would encourage you and those who have interest in what we do to review our website, www.caricom.mil, and the new Defense Department special web report on U.S. Africa Command at this link. Wrote its Director of Public Affairs, Colonel Tom Davis.
Okay.
A decade later, the link is dead. Davis is a functionary at Pima Community College in Tulsa, Arizona, and I'm still keeping an eye on AFRICOM. A few months later, in fact, I revealed the existence of a previously unknown AFRICOM investigation of an airstrike in Nigeria that killed more than 160 civilians. A former secret 2017 Africa Command document I obtained called for an inquiry into that U.S.-Nigerian operation that was never disclosed to Congress, much less the public.
Okay.
Since then, AFRICOM has steadfastly refused to offer a substantive comment on the strike or the investigation that followed, and won't even say it will release relevant documents to members of Congress. Last month, citing my reporting, a group of lawmakers from the newly formed Protection of Civilians in Conflict Caucus called on Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin to turn over the files on, and answer key questions about the attack. The Pentagon has so far kept numb. Has AFRICOM then, as Davis contended so long ago, been transparent? Is its website the go-to spot for information about U.S. military missions on that continent? Did its operations there remain few and innocuous? Or was I onto something? A kinder, gentler, combatant command. From its inception, according to its first commander, General William Ward, AFRICOM was intended to be a different kind of command, less hardcore, more Peace Corps. AFRICOM's focus is on war prevention. Deputy Assistant of Defense, Secretary of Defense for African Affairs, Teresa Whelan, said in 2007, rather than war fighting. In 2012, Ward's successor, General Carter Ham, told the House Armed Services Committee that small teams of American personnel were conducting a wide range of engagements in support of U.S. security interests. Years later, retired Army Retaliate General Tom Bullock, who served at AFRICOM from 2013 to 2015 and headed Special Ops Command Africa into 2017, would offer some clarity about those engagements. Between 2013 and 17, he explained, American commandos saw combat in at least 13 African countries: Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, Kenya, Libya, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Somalia, South Sudan, and Tunisia. 6 troops, he added, were killed or wounded in action in at least 6 of them. Between 2015 and 2017, there were at least 10 unreported attacks on American troops in West Africa alone. A month after that January 2017 Nigerian airstrike, in fact, U.S. Marines fought al-Qaeda militants in a battle that CARICOM still won't admit took place in Tunisia. That April, a U.S. commander reportedly killed a member of warlord Joseph Kony's Lord Resistance Army in the Central African Republic. The next month, during an advise, assist, and accompany mission, 38-year-old Navy SEAL Kyle Milliken was killed and 2 other Americans were wounded in a raid on a militant camp in Somalia. That same year, a Navy SEAL reported shot and killed a man outside of a compound in ISIS flag in Cameroon. And that October, CARICOM was finally forced to abandon the fiction that U.S. troops weren't at war on the continent after ISIS militants ambushed American troops in Niger, killing 4 and wounding 2 more. We don't know exactly where we're at in the world militarily and what we're doing, said Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, then a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, after meeting with Pentagon officials about the attack. In the 2010s, I would, in fact, reveal that the U.S. had conducted at least 36 named operations and activities in Africa, more than anywhere else on Earth, including the Middle East. Among them were 8 127E programs named for the budgetary authority that allows special ops forces to use foreign military units as surrogate in counterterrorism missions. More recently, I will report on 11 of those proxy programs employed in Africa, including one in Tunisia, codenamed Obsidian Tower, and never acknowledged by the Pentagon, and another with a notoriously abusive Cameroonian military unit connected to mass atrocities. 5 of those 127E programs were conducted in Somalia by U.S. commandos training, equipping, and directing troops from Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, and Uganda as part of the fight against the Islamic militant group Al-Shabaab. In 2018, 26-year-old Agnes Conrad of Army Special Forces was killed in an attack on a small U.S. military outpost in Somalia. Such outposts have been long a point of contention between AFRICOM and me. The U.S. maintains a surprising number of bases in Africa, I wrote in that initial Tom Dispatch article in July 2012. Excuse me. Colonel Davis denied it. Other than our base at Camp Lemierre in Djibouti, he claimed we do not have military bases in Africa. I had, he insisted, filed that article before CARICOM could not get me further outpost material. If he had waited, we would have provided the information requested, which would have better informed his story. I had begun requesting information that May, calling in additional questions in June and July, and then, as requested, put them in writing. I followed up on the 9th, mentioning my looming deadline, and was told that CARICOM headquarters might have some answers for me on the 10th. That day came and went, as did the 11th. Tom Dispatch finally published a piece on July 12th. I respectfully submit that vigorous free press cannot be held hostage waiting for information that might never arrive, I wrote Davis. When I later followed up, Davis turned out to be on leave, but CARICOM spokesperson Eric Elliott emailed in August to say, let me see what I can give you in response to your request for a complete list of its facilities. Then for weeks, CARICOM went dark. A follow-up email in late October went unanswered. Another in early November elicited a response from spokesperson David Haitch, who said that he was handling the request and would provide an update by week's end. I'm sure you won't be shocked to learn that he didn't. So I followed up yet again. On November 16th, he finally responded. All questions now have answers. I just need the boss to review before I can release. I hope to have them to you by mid next week. Did I get them? What do you think? In December, Haitch finally replied, all questions have been answered, but are still being reviewed for release. Hopefully this week I can send everything your way. Did he? Ha. In January 2013, I received answers to some questions of mine, but nothing about those bases. By then, Haitch too had disappeared, and I was left dealing with CARICOM's Chief of Media Engagement, Benjamin Benson. When asked about my questions, he replied that public affairs wouldn't provide answers, and so I should file a Freedom of Information Act request. Oh, God. To recap, 6 months later, Benson recommended I start again, and in good faith, I did. In 2016, 3.5 years later, I received a partial response to that FOIA request. 1 page of partially redacted, not to mention useless, information about, Camp Lemierre and nothing else. Thoughts so far?
I mean, I think it's pronounced AFRICOM. AFRA.
AFRICOM, yeah.
Saying CARICOM, which sounds like a weird game, like on the Atari, you know?
Yeah. Oh, you know, I can't read.
Dude, I can't either, so we're both out of luck most of the time. But no, I mean, yeah, it's I mean, essentially we have multiple army bases in Africa that are not being like
reported.
Yes.
I mean, like
and
just
who was it?
One. Yeah,
in chat
sure.
Earlier. Said Starlink, who supplies military logistics coordination to Ukraine, who runs Starlink, Collin? Do you know? He also recently bought Twitter for a cool $49 billion.
Musk.
Yeah, there you go.
So actually,
so they're taking their talents to
now.
Africa, Starlink.
Yeah.
FYI.
So we're carrying Starlinks now, said in chat, 800 plus bases since Douya's first term, and only 1 in all of Africa. We know we have bases every few miles surrounding Somalia. Did map makers move Somalia out of Africa?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, old W.
Right.
Weapons of mass
So
destruction.
basically, all this song and dance to ask how many bases you got, and they can't answer.
No. How did my thing get frozen again? Why is it doing that? Is my camera. They can hear me, luckily, but I'm now hold
You're
on,
frozen.
this fixed it last time. Yeah, I'm working on it. Here, and then I go here, and then I think if I here.
Welcome
here,
to live, folks.
Did that fix it? No.
No.
Why? Maybe now? No.
No.
Whatever.
I mean, it could stay like that.
Yeah, it's fine. Hold on. I fix these.
Your position doesn't change much.
No, pretty much. But since I'm doing the next story, I might as well go ahead and see if that fixes things. Back to studio mode. Back to virtual this thing, and see if I can hit that again. Let me do this. Hold on. No, still no.
No.
Interesting. Why? I don't get it. Anyway, whatever. I'm gonna have to figure out why it's doing that. I might need a new webcam.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Buy a new cam for Reef for Christmas, y'all.
That would be nice. But let's. I might just have to pull it off of the USB hub. I think that's part of the problem. But anyway,
yeah. So
you have more to this story, I think.
Yeah, I do. It's a long article, so and yeah, I think we're just about a little more than half of it through by now.
Okay.
So anyway, let's continue. Let me go back just to what happened?
You went back one?
Yeah, I went back one. Just to check.
Okay. Oh, you can't see when I do that, can you? How about that?
Yeah. Is that
next page is what you want?
I read this.
Yes.
Yeah, I read this already. Okay.
There you go.
Anyway, continue. I would spend years investigating the bases David claims didn't exist. Using leaked secret documents, I shed light on a network of African drone bases integral to U.S. assassination programs on the continent, as well as the existence of a secret network of National Security Agency eavesdropping outposts in Ethiopia. Using formerly secret documents, I revealed an even larger network of U.S. bases across Africa again and again. I used little notice open source information to highlight activities at those facilities, while helping exposing murder and torture by local forces at a drone base in Cameroon, built up and frequented by Americans. I also spotlighted the construction of a $100 million drone base in Niger, a previously unreported outpost in Mali apparently overrun by militants after a 2012 coup there by a US-trained officer, the expansion of a shadowy drone base in the Horn of Africa, and its role in lethal strikes against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, hundreds of drone strikes from Libya to Somalia and the resulting civilian casualties, and a flailing U.S. war on terror all across Africa. Not surprisingly, AFRICOM'S website had never had so much to say about such reporting. No, you could go there to find articles like the CARICOM files, Pentagon unaccounts ignores military sexual assault in Africa. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it works there now, right?
Yeah.
But it's not no BS. Okay, that's fine.
Pentagon document shows U.S. knew of credible reports of civilian casualties after its attacks in Somalia. New data shows the U.S. military is severely undercounting civilian casualties in Somalia. Pentagon stands by Cameroon despite forensic analysis showing its soldiers executed women and children. U.S. troops in Africa might be in danger. Why is the military trying to hide it? You know you're on target when you're getting a lot of flax. In the years since, a parade of AFRICOM press officials came and went, replying in a by-van familiar fashion. Nick, we're not going to respond to any of your questions. Lieutenant Commander Anthony Falco, Falfo, I guess, head of its public affairs branch, told me in October 2017. Did he, I asked, believe AFRICOM needed to address questions from the press in general or only from me? No, just you, he replied. We don't consider you a legitimate journalist, really. Then he hung up.
Crazy.
Oh, God. That same month, I was inadvertently ushered behind the closed doors of the CARICOM Public Affairs Office. While attempting to hang up on me, a member of the staff accidentally put me on speakerphone, and suddenly I found myself listening in to the goings-on from banal banter to shrieking outbursts. And believe me, it wasn't pretty. While the command regularly claimed its personnel had the utmost respect for their local counterparts, I discovered, for example, that at least certain press officers appeared to have a remarkable low opinion of some of their African partners. Doesn't surprise me at all. At one point, Fallo asked if there were any new intelligence regarding military operations in Niger after the 2017 ambush that killed those 4 American soldiers. You can't put Nigerians and intelligence in one sentence, in the same sentence, replied someone in the office. Laughter followed, and I published the sordid details. That very month, Anthony Fallo shipped off, literally ending up in the public affairs office of the USS General Ford.
What did I do? I think I scrolled.
You went back, yeah. Next
there
one.
we go.
There we go. Thank you. Today, a new coterie of AFRICOM public affairs personnel field questions, but Fallo's successor, Deputy Director of Public Affairs John Manley, a genuine professional, seems to be on call whenever my questions are especially problematic. He swears this isn't true, but I'm sure you won't be shocked to learn that he fielded my inquiries for this article. After Colonel Tom Davis, who left CARICOM to join Special Ops Upper Command, where in a private email he called me a turkey, failed to respond to my interview requests. I asked AFRICOM if this defer and deny system was the best way to inform the American public. We're not going to comment on processes and procedures in place a decade ago or provide opinions of personnel who worked in the office at that time, said Manley. Our response is to provide timely, accurate, and transparent responses to inquiries received from all members of the media, Manley told me. Yes, me, the reporter who's been waiting since 2012 for answers about those U.S. bases. And by CARICOM standards, AFRICOM standards, maybe that's not really so long, given its endless failures in quelling terrorism and promoting stability in places like Burkina Faso, Libya, and Somalia. Common theme tonight, it seems.
What, all of our military hands, like, you know?
Military hands all over the place, going in countries in the name of stability, and you're making the countries worse.
Yes.
So
well, ours is failing.
Right. Still, I give Manley and Law credit. He isn't thin-skinned or afraid to talk, and he does offer answers, although sometimes they seem so far-fetched that I can't believe he uttered them with a straight face. Though he agreed to discuss his replies further, I doubted that badgering him will get either of us anywhere. So I just let his last one stand as a digital monument to my 10-year relationship with AFRICOM. When I asked if the Public Affairs Office had always been as forthright, and helpful with my inquiries as possible, he unleashed a perfect capstone to my decade-long dance with the U.S. Africa Command by offering up just one lone word, yes. Oop.
It's like, have you lied as much previously?
Right.
Yeah. Pretty much. Like, okay. Sure.
So I did some very quick research. I actually want to just check.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah.
Because I believe someone did this in, there you go, you're working now.
Yeah, I found it.
Like, I think someone asked in some stream how many bases we had in,
like,
you know, everywhere in comparison to like Russia. And I looked it up quickly, and I believe there are 24 Russian bases globally.
Okay.
Let's play a game. How many bases based on this article, because this article does not say, or Nick didn't get any information as far as how many bases you guys have on the continent. Who wants to take a guess? So who wants to, let's do it the Price is Right style. Like, who wants to take a guess and see how many bases there are in Africa without going over? Let's play this game.
So what we could do is like, let's do, can we look up like
without looking online, without checking, without looking online or checking? Let's see in the chat how many people. So Yipper says 0 to 500. Okay. Reef, what do you think without looking online?
Yeah, I'm not looking online for that. I was looking at like what South America has. You know?
So Warren's like 376. Gira said 200.
76 are in Latin America.
Okay. US bases.
So yes. And like 800 around the world that we know of.
Right.
So I guarantee you there's probably at least 50. I would imagine.
Any other guesses? Any other guesses?
Jarrah says 200.
Yeah.
0 to 500 says yep. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Yipper says 58. Well, again, we don't entirely know for sure. I'm just, you know, like given what I've seen, because it could be a lot more than what is being reported. But there are, let me jump.
Survey
there are
says,
at least, I'm saying at least 29 US bases in Africa, which even that seems low.
You like my Steve Harvey
But
laugh?
this is according to the Pentagon that they're 29. So
Steve Harvey literally yucks.
Right. So
straight up,
you know, but again, all that to say, you know, like, you know, again, we're not talking about this. Again, I didn't know AFRICOM was connected to the US. Again, part of my ignorance. But the idea, like, Nick Truss basically has been on their asses for like the last decade and basically asking simple questions in terms of how many bases you got, in terms of like, you know, the military coups essentially that they're doing in Africa, and they gave him the runaround for a decade, basically like, we're not going to answer you.
Yeah.
You know, so I think if there's if the fact that even what he shared is just the surface of what, you know, he ended up finding out from his reporting, you know, there probably is a lot, not probably, there is a lot more shit that is happening. And I'm sure there's more bases in Africa than what is being reported. But
the
again,
United States
just
has
like Haiti,
29 known military
I'm saying
facilities.
at least. I'm saying at least, because I'm sure there's more.
In the continent,
you know?
There's known to be 29 already.
Right. At least. I'm holding to that, at least.
Yeah.
So, you know, but again, it just kind of shows, similar to Haiti, you know, like US is getting their little fingers in Africa, you know, for the resource or whatever, in the guise of, oh, we're going to stabilize the countries or whatever. We're going to prevent, you know, like, you know, crime or whatever else. And then like, you know, they ain't doing shit other than terrorizing and making, you know, more war. So, so actually, you know, like this was
Speaking
actually
of Latin America.
Yeah. So this was actually a very good article. So thank you, Reef, you know, for
You're
sharing
welcome.
that. And I think actually this might be a person that I'm going to follow. I actually did follow him on Twitter. And actually probably will click this and, you know, just tag into this. But again, like this, the idea of like our presence in the world, especially in terms of war, is a lot more secretive than I believe we realize. And I think especially, I think this article is basically proving of our hand basically everywhere, that to the point where they're not even talking about it. Like, I think it's just very concerning given, you know, like, given what we've already kind of talked about in Haiti and other countries. Yeah, you're saying it's about competing. Exactly. You know, it's like, you know, because
which
China,
we'll get into
especially
in a little bit.
Yeah, and like China is definitely growing in its influence over there. So I think, you know, especially in East Africa. So
And
the
Russia
idea of like
as
in
well.
Russia. So like the idea of like America is just there just to kind of monitor, you know. But again, all that to say is what's happening in Ukraine. I mean, it's happening already. Like it's happening in Somalia already. Again, no one's talking about that. Ilhan
Yeah.
Omar. Why are you not talking about that? That's your damn country.
Yeah, Ilhan.
You
Your
know?
country. God.
But aside, you know, like
Assad?
this is their way of kind of monitoring the situation in the event that there could be something like another proxy war a la Ukraine, in the guise of China. So thinking back to what Fetterman said, you know, at his debate, you know, in his mind, our biggest threat is China. Like, can definitely be true if you're thinking of Africa in terms of like how China has a growing presence in the country. Now, to be fair, and I've said this, you know, I'm kind of mixed on China's presence in Africa, but again, like you can like is a very more nuanced issue, especially for talking to people on the ground who are not necessarily appreciating Chinese being there and kind of overtaking their jobs over them, essentially. And then all their resources it's going into China and not necessarily, you know, into the countries that they're in per se. Or Chinese are supervising those projects over Africans over there. But no love for China either in this regard. But the argument is that China is actually developing infrastructure versus America is looking to cause war.
And steal resources.
Right.
Yes.
So you can argue China too in a way. But
what do we talk about? We've talked about it a lot here on the channel. What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
In terms of
anything. Like taking our power back.
Right.
Like what
the idea
and what do we have
like,
to do that to get our power back? What does that require?
Organizing.
Yes, sir.
Organizing.
That's
organizing.
The word.
But organizing behind principles. What is your ideology?
And not people, right? Okay. Right. Well, you probably recognize this in the news. You know that guy. That's Lula. 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 Brazilian. I guess he's the president. What are they called?
President-elect. President-elect.
Okay.
Well,
sure.
Considering that Bolsonaro is basically like, nah, but president-elect, not
El Jefe, El Presidente. Yeah. Got it. I guess it wouldn't be El. It would be. Does Portuguese work with that? I don't remember. Someone will tell me. But anyway, so this is from Andre Barbieri, right? And it was originally published in Portuguese in Esquerda Diario, and it was translated by Robert Bellano, right? But Bolsonarism will not be defeated in Brazil without organizing independently of the Lula government. Lula won by a narrow margin in yesterday's elections in Brazil, but his government is unwilling to truly challenge the right's advance. A Brazilian socialist describes the fight ahead for the country's workers and left. So keep all those labels in mind here. Again, labels are generally bad, but, you know, we'll work through it. We'll get through it. So Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has been declared the winner of yesterday's presidential election in Brazil with a slim margin of victory, which wasn't yesterday. That was like almost Sunday. A week ago now, right? Less than 2 percentage points separated him and Jair Bolsonaro. The far-right incumbent, meanwhile, increasing his vote share considerably from the first round earlier this month. The country's poorest residents, especially in the northeastern regions, have come to identify the far right with the enormous crisis affecting the country, from the devastating coronavirus pandemic to widespread hunger and unemployment. Bolsonaro is the first president since the end of the dictatorship to fail to be reelected to a second term. U.S. President Joe Biden called Lula to congratulate him on his victory, as did French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, signaling support of U.S. and European imperialism for the new PT, that's the Workers' Party government.
Right. I actually have a comment on this because people were like, why would Biden thank Lula for winning, considering Biden is not, anywhere near a socialist at all. You can also argue if Lula is either. He's like, just for the record, Lula is not like a full-out socialist. He's more like a social a la Bernie Sanders. So, and funny enough, I was listening to Jimmy Dore this morning where he talked about this with Pasta. I guess Pasta was on a live stream, maybe yesterday, if not Monday. And they talked about this, and, the reality is Lula has governed because this is his third term essentially running in the country.
Yep.
The argument that Pasta was making is that Lula, for all intents and purposes, he ran in a way that he equated to if Bernie was president now. Like, there's still going to be ties to Wall Street. There's still going to be ties, with the elites, basically, World Bank, IMF, all of that. That Lula has one foot in terms of that, in that class, so to speak, politically. What makes Lula special and why his win was significant is that at minimum, he allocated a lot of that money towards the working class. That's why he was very popular, So Lula, it basically has both feet. Like, he's not a full-out socialist. Let's get that right now. But what made Lula popular is that he did something for the working class that people are recognizing, that he was popular, like, during his last two terms. So, but they, and I saw this a lot on Twitter, just as far as, Lula, well, it kind of makes sense if you're a Bernie sycophant, like, Lula's basically that. So it's the idea of like, Lula is a socialist, he's going to change the country, Bolsonaro is a shit, like he's like Trump and all that kind of stuff. But he's still connected to corporations, though. So, which no one is talking about. So that being said, yes, we're happy that Lula won, but he's not going to be full on blown socialist, in terms of the workers seizing the rights of production, so to speak. He will do just enough to have the working class uplift their conditions a little bit, but it won't be totally, worker-led society. There's still going to be the issues regarding, like, the rich and the working class in Brazil. Oh, you unmute me, I think.
Yep. So
I might gave away the whole article, but I didn't actually read.
Not entirely. Lula earned over 60 million votes compared to just over 58 million for Bolsonaro. The Workers' Party leader won around 3 million more votes compared to the first round, while Bolsonaro increased his count by over 7 million, confirming that the country remains in a reactionary political situation. Bolsonaro's allies also gained a majority in Congress. Okay, keep that in mind. So, in the state of Minas Gerais, Bolsonaro was able to reduce Lula's margin of victory substantially. Lula won the state by 500,000 votes in the first round, But by just under 30,000 in the runoff in the state of Sao Paulo, Bolsonaro beat Lula by 1.7 votes in round 1, but 2.6 million in round 2. In both the capital city of Sao Paulo and in Bahia, Lula's margin was reduced by around 200,000 votes from the first round. The northeast of the country remained a stronghold for Lula, and he was able to retain approximately the same level of support as in the first round. Excuse me. So, Lula has already declared that his will not be a PT government. That's that Workers' Party, right?
Right.
And indeed, he plans to govern alongside Simone Tebet, Maureen Silva, Geraldo Alckmin, and other figures of the right or center-right. At his press conference, Lula reiterated a discourse of national unity. I have a thing for that. To scroll. Unity! At his press conference, Lula reiterated a discourse of national unity and negotiation with the traditional parties and state institutions like the army, while rejecting the idea that there exists two Brazils. He stressed that this is not a victory won by the PT, but by the enormous democratic movement that goes beyond political parties, and assured the press that he will negotiate with any governor or mayor, no matter his or her political party.
Right. So it kind of goes along with what I was saying, you know, like, and I mean, you have to, I guess, you know, in terms of, especially given that Parliament is still very conservative. So, so I think he's not going to be full blown socialist here. Like, and again, given those names, you know, again, he's going to have to cooperate with Wall Street and corporate banks. World
that
Bank,
are in Brazil, that
are in Brazil in some way, shape, or form. That's going to be the reality. So again, don't make a mistake. He's not going to be like full out socialist here. Like, he will do enough, you know, given his background and his past political career, do just enough to uplift the working class a little bit, but it's still not going to be enough where they're actually like really thriving. You know, there's still going to be that issue, as he said, you know, so it's not a win for the working class, really. It's for the party.
Right.
So who does that include? That includes the elites.
Well, here we go. So Lula spoke of the need for greater democracy in the country, more religious freedom, ending racism and prejudice, and for increasing salaries in the face of rising inflation. However, he admitted that he will be governing in a very difficult political moment, signaling a need for patience with his administration, which will surely be making many concessions to the right. He also made a point of sending greetings to Pope Francis and quoted various biblical passages. Lula also called for reestablishing strong commercial relations with the U.S. and European Union without mentioning China. He denounced Bolsonaro's disastrous environmental policies, but without any reference to the highly destructive agribusiness industry. We are not interested in a war over the environment, he declared, but we are ready to defend the Amazon. With the country divided, Lula would be forced to govern in a situation of extreme political polarization, a strengthened right wing, and an inherited economic crisis. Bolsonaro's supporters made various attempts to manipulate the election results, for example, blocking Lula supporters from entering polling sites, actions that generated further condemnation of the Bolsonaro campaign. In the Northeast, where 27% of the electorate is concentrated and where Bolsonaro is particularly hated, the Federal Railway Police and the Army carried out various operations that sought to keep people from voting. The head of the Railway Police declared publicly his support for Bolsonaro on the eve of the elections, making these actions even more scandalous. These attempts at voter suppression affected the vote count throughout the Northeast and in various cities where Lula emerged as the frontrunner after the first round. It was yet another example of the repressive forces of the state, where the far right holds a strong grip, intervening in Brazilian politics. The military was also granted the right to oversee the vote counts. Thanks to a ruling by right-wing judge Alexandre de Moraes and the Supreme Electoral Court. It is imperative that we fight these threats by the far right with strikes and workplace actions without maintaining any confidence in the court. After all, these very courts were responsible for the return of the right-wing power since 2016 and are no allies of ours. In the face of any attempts at a coup or challenge, to the election results by Bolsonaro, we must take to the streets and demand the major union organize to shut down the country. Bolsonarism will remain a potent force both in the streets and in Congress, while Bolsonaro himself will use his strong electoral showing yesterday to lead the opposition to the government of Lula and Alckmin. Meanwhile, the results of yesterday's elections show that the broad front, led by Lula and Alckmin, together with the sectors of the right, did not keep the far right from advancing. To the contrary, it only provided more fuels to the reactionary. The Lula campaign promised to maintain all the right-wing counter-reforms of recent years, including the labor and pensions reforms of 2016 that were supported by big business, and is clearly adapted to conservative agenda of Bolsonaro. As evidence of this adaptation, Lula has said that he does not support the right to abortion. He will instead let Congress decide the issue, and directed a letter to evangelical leaders promising to include them in the government's decision-making. We shared the hatred of Bolsonaro felt by the workers and young people who rejected the far-right leader at the polls and who celebrate the end of his presidency. At the same time, it is necessary to point out that it will not be possible to fight Bolsonarism in alliance with the right wing. As Lula and the PT are doing, Lula's government will compromise with the right. We must prepare a struggle against Bolsonarism and the right-wing attacks that have been implemented since the 2016 coup, with complete independence from the government and organized at the level of the rank and file. The starting point for our struggle must be scraping all the counter reforms enacted by the right and in favor of big capital. It's necessary to fight for the reduction of the work week to 30 hours without any cuts to salaries and for the distribution of hours among the employed and unemployed. The starting point for our struggle must be scraping all the counter reforms enacted by the right and in favor of big capital. Is necessary to fight for reduction. I just read that. The fight is critical for the construction of an independent working class and socialist alternative. The only force capable of putting into the crisis is sending the far right once and for all to the dustbin of history. So, I mean, he's calling for organizing independently, which is something we call for frequently.
Right. So I think that's one thing that I do appreciate about Lula saying. You know, he's saying, I can only do so much here. You have to organize outside of that. You know, which honestly, and now thinking about this, you know, I have to wonder, like, because again, he's Bernie. He's a Bernie of Brazil. Like, and so you have to imagine,
Obama.
like,
I mean, it sounds
right.
like.
Yeah. Like, but I imagine he's more closer to Bernie in certain instances.
Yeah.
Than Obama.
The weird stuff is like letting the religious leaders like have a say in things. I mean, separation of church and state would be nice.
Right. So, yeah, even within the article, he's not really left in certain issues. Like, I'm sure people
and he's
like
wanting to connect economically with the U.S. and Europe.
Which, again, this kind of goes to shows how lazy people on Twitter are, and then like a lot of these big channels who are kind of like, Lula won, he's so base, and all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, no, like he is not the socialist that you're making him. And I think ultimately we see that. We see like how people, like just basically are fanboys and girls for the squad and fanboys and girls after Bernie, but the reality is, and they're doing the same thing with Lula now, but then like at the same time, it's like Lula just said he is not pro-abortion.
Yeah.
For example, so no one's going to talk about that. I haven't heard anyone talk about that. He's already said he has to, collaborate with the right, which again, it makes sense given his parliament is going to be mostly conservative. So it makes sense. So so honestly, I'm kind of torn on this because obviously we want just ideally like a full out socialist just to kind of help the working class or whatever. But I think Lula kind of understands that's not going to work, and the only way that it will happen is if the people make that happen. So I do appreciate that he said, I can only do so much here. You have to make it happen in terms of organizing. And I think from that changes people's minds, because the fact that like it was that close of an election. You know, again, no one's talking about it. Like, the thing is, people are talking about it in terms of left and right. I kind of look at it in terms of like affluent versus not.
Up and down. Yeah.
Up and down.
Like it's
Like,
a class problem, and
it's a, I see it as more of a class problem,
ideology
if anything else, versus a party issue. Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, not all, but I'm pretty sure the majority of people who wanted Bolsonaro to win are comfortable. They're good. So they
Yeah.
didn't really mind Bolsonaro, you know, being president, because they're all right. You know,
Yeah.
like, same thing here. You know, there are plenty of people who may not like Biden, but will vote for him again because they're good. They're comfortable. So, you know, so I think it'll be interesting to kind of watch over the next few years what happens in Brazil. But yeah, like I said, I do appreciate Lula saying the people have to rise up. And
Yeah.
I'm sure, given what's happening in Latin America right now, I'm sure it's a lot
Well,
easier for a
I don't
revolution
even know if
there.
he's saying that. I mean, it seems more like this writer was saying that, you know?
Right. Right.
Like,
So that, yeah, good point. But, you know,
but I'm glad someone's saying it because it's true.
right. Right.
You know?
So it's really the idea of like, people have to organize. People, but again, you have to organize behind an ideology.
Yes.
Don't idolize Lula. And I think people, that's what people are doing, you know, which is
Idealize
like,
issues, finalize your demands. Like,
stop. Like, yes, idolize
what
your
do you
demand.
want? Figure
Right.
out what you want, fight for what you want, and get anyone else who wants to fight for those same things to join you. Like,
Right.
it's that simple. You know, even if that's something basic.
Right.
You know?
So yeah, I hope this will be the catalyst. Now, like I said, it's Lula. He's a promising start, but
Yep.
where he started basically the ball rolling. So it's really up to the people of Brazil to
I'm
really
sure
push
time
it
will
forward.
tell.
But, yeah, but given what's happening in Latin America, I'm sure it'll be interesting to watch. But I'm sure there'll be. I think it's easier for more of an uprising there, given that a lot of Latin American countries are becoming more socialist.
Yeah.
So I feel like Brazil will hopefully kind of follow suit in that if the people kind of take the reins. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah.
Well,
happy Lula won, but stop idolizing him, folks. He's not that great.
Yes.
You know?
So,
but
continue
yeah.
the fight, pretty much. That's pretty
Right.
much what it's about. But anyway, that's our show for this evening, folks.
Yeah.
But next week we have the boys from Do Dissonance, I think, coming on with us.
Yep. So Keenan and Russ, they're not new, but I think new-ish in terms of people are just, I feel, beginning to hear about them. Like I said, the algorithm blessed me with their channel like a month ago. And like I started watching their stuff and I'm like, oh, you know. So like we'll give them a plug. They gave us a plug when I went in their chat the other day. So go follow them, you know, on YouTube. They also stream a lot on Facebook, it seems. So, but definitely follow them, you know, on Twitter, and definitely follow them on YouTube. Do Dissonance. I think generally they have very good takes, kind of aligned with us in a lot of ways. And yeah, I think these are guys that I think, you know, we should definitely kind of watch, you know, but we're happy to kind of host them. And I'm sure we're probably going to talk about midterms next week in part.
Oh God.
So,
I don't even I forget that's a thing.
Yeah, that's the thing next week. So yeah, that's what we've got to talk about.
We'll get Nick on at some point. We're trying to reschedule that. So
yeah, so hopefully the following week. So the 16th. Yeah,
tomorrow,
hopefully the 16th.
Tune in for Tara. She's got a special guest, so tune in for that.
I wonder who it is.
I wonder who. You're gonna have to find out. It'll also be streamed on this channel as well if you don't want to go through the time to find them. Extra Bola putting that YouTube link to the Do Dissonance there in the chat for us. Thank you.
They do have a Substack. Thank you, Indy, for linking them. So yeah, so definitely give them a look. Definitely check them out. And yeah, like I said, we're happy to host them next week.
Yep, that's gonna be fun.
So,
I
any
have no
other-
idea Friday if I'm doing something. Saturdays, as always, go check Roar Media. Go find
And I
Oz
think
and
rumor
watch
has it
Beauty and the
that
Boomer.
our colleague and my little brother in my head, Big Mad Crab, might maybe streaming after this, maybe
Okay.
on Twitch.
I think I heard that. So
So
you
definitely
should be
look
able
out
to
for him if
find
you.
links
Yeah.
to him and all the other members of INN and all their channels and ways to support them, their Patreons, their PayPals. I think a few of them just have hats laid out in front of you that you can put coins into. So feel free to give now that season is becoming up ahead.
Yeah.
But
Juan
yeah,
said Crab Friend to stream on Twitch. So yeah, if you follow Crab, if you go to our Indie News Network page, you'll find his LinkedIn.
Go tell YouTube to give Beauty and the Boomer their channel back, seeing as how they got a content strike. But we always offer our channel, Oz, if you want to use our stuff.
Yep. Thank you, Warren, for linking Greg, Big Mad Crab.
Crabs. Yep. You can also find that Meet the Member section down there at indienews.network. But yeah, if you give to our Patreons, we'll pool all that money, try to buy a Powerball, see if we win.
Buy Reef a new webcam.
Yeah, that would be nice. But yeah, anyway, Sunday, how do we miss that? But otherwise, stay tuned. I think Tara's moving to Thursday, so we'll see how that goes for a while. But anyway, anything else?
No, I think we're good, and I'm feeling a lot better now. So thanks to you
good.
guys for hanging out and suffering with me with this gas issue that I have. But yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. So
yep.
So I guess being on stream helped. So thank you guys.
Warren's Secret shows Friday and Saturday night, and
yes,
little birds pray tell of Extra Bulla on the rise and coming back.
Yeah.
So that should be fun.
And then I think the only big thing is look out for our anniversary stream to be announced.
Yes.
Of celebrating our first year as a network. So yeah.
Yep.
We made it nice. And please subscribe. We're trying to hit that 1K mark. Hopefully by the holidays, if not shortly after. So yeah. Share your friends. We have a lot of good stuff. We hope that you appreciate the stream, that you'll be willing to share. And you can kind of tell people, kind of reality is some of this foreign policy stuff that we reported on tonight. So
okay. Well, as always, labels are bad.
Labels are bad.
Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Good night, all. Thank you.